real talk, just rap pack. Besides that, nobody I trust.
Back again like I never left. Young Sinatra, that's to the death. We turned up till we go deaf.
Hi guys, and welcome to another video. Today, which is the best hot hatch? Is it a Mark 1 Focus ST170 or is it a ST170 TDI 170? Let's find out. So, what you may be thinking, these cars aren't that similar, but they sort of are. So, the only thing I will say, if I want to do a fair comparison, I probably should be using the Mark 1 ST170 as that's the Mark 1 Focus. So, when these come out, that was 1998 to 2004, a very similar age to the Mark 1 ST170, which was, I think, 2000 to 2005. So they're more of they would have been a closer age-related comparison. But I don't have a Mark 1 ST170, so I'm not comparing it. So the reason these cars are sort of reasonably similar, and I think actually an almost fair comparison, is they're both front-wheel drive, they're both 2-litre engines, they're both hot hatches. So the first thing we'll start with in this comparison video of these two hot hatches is the power, which from standard they both have 170, or to be specific, 171 and 168. But obviously they both round to 170 because that's just better for titles. So they both have 170 brake horsepower. The difference is the 2-litre naturally aspirated Duratec engine has 144 foot-pounds of torque, and the ST170 has, in its 2-litre TDI engine, has 258 foot-pounds of torque. So because of the turbo, obviously just from factory and being a turbo diesel. However, even though the torque is different, obviously the Focus is slightly lighter, and also on a flat sort of race, like a drag almost, they wouldn't be that much different because the torque really only comes into play when you're going uphill, and also when you're slightly higher up the sort of speedo, and you need the torque to push you through the air. Obviously the horsepower is the sort of main factor, but yeah, if you're going uphill or anything like that and you need the grunt, obviously that's where the 2-litre TDI engine is going to come into play a bit more than the Focus, than the 2-litre Duratec. So the next things I want to talk about are sort of things you need to consider, because if you were looking at buying one of these two cars as your first car, second car, third car, or as a project car, these sort of things that you need to know, and it's helpful to have in a video. So for example, tax. So road tax for these cars, for the Seat is £210 a year, and for the Focus, which I don't know if it's because it's older or a petrol, I don't know if it's because it's lighter, I don't know if it's because it's older or just a naturally aspirated engine, but the road tax on a Focus is £340, so it's 130, it's a fly or a wasp or a bee, there's a fly, is £130 more expensive, and I don't really know why that is, but yeah, to road tax, the Focus £140 more expensive than the Seat, 210, 340. Then we come to also insurance groups. Now the insurance group on a Seat Leon is 24, which after looking online, I've done some, like if I was 17 and it was my first car, if I was 18 and it was my first car and I've had 2 years, no claims, those sort of things. The insurance on both of them, you basically can't do it. I have had a look. It's first year on both cars are 8 grand for a 17-year-old, and that's like 17-year-old who works at Tesco, you know, sort of general, lives at home, cars on the drive, just general sort of insurance stuff. They're both uninsurable for like your first year, and your second year I think it was like 3.5 grand for the Focus, and then like 4 grand because it's a 2-litre turbo diesel car. I know like the older PD engines, like the Fabia VRSs and those sort of shapes, or that engine, the 150 brake horsepower I think it is, they're a lot easier to insure. Oh, bird pooed on my car. They're a lot easier to insure, but yeah, so I tried to insure both these cars as a 17-year-old, and I basically couldn't. I couldn't find anyone that would do it. However, just for the principle of this video, the insurance group on the Seat was 24, and for the Focus was 31. So it's 7 categories higher to insure the Focus. So it's higher road tax, higher insurance group. Yeah, that's what we're up to so far. So MPG, obviously being a petrol, naturally aspirated engine, the Focus is worse. I've averaged about 30 MPG in that, and that's sort of daily driving with having a bit of a play every now and again, and I got 30 MPG. However, with the Seat, pretty much no matter how you drive it, you're going to get 50 MPG. It's very easy to get good fuel economy. They obviously get better when you tune them, but that's something I'm going to get into later on in the video. So when it comes to power gains, obviously with a 2-litre TDI turbo engine, it's a lot easier to get power. A simple remap will get you 50 brake horsepower and sort of 80 foot-pounds of torque without any worries, without any modifications regarding exhaust, induction kit, front mounts, anything like that. However, with a naturally aspirated engine, you pretty much don't get anything unless you put a forced induction kit, as in a turbo or a supercharger on them. So I've put an exhaust on mine, I could put an induction kit on it, I could give it a remap, but I'm probably only going to gain maybe 10, maybe 20 brake horsepower at the max, unless I put a turbo on it, unless I supercharge it, which then means I need to get an upgraded clutch, I need to get maybe a different manifold, all the other things that come with it. So if you're looking for like bang for buck, you want like a reasonable amount of power for not a lot of cost, getting a turbo diesel and remapping it will be a lot easier way of getting power than it would be to get a naturally aspirated engine and putting a turbo on it, or trying to squeeze as much power as you can just by putting an induction kit and exhaust, etc. It's just something that you need to sort of consider when getting these cars. Like obviously as standard, they're pretty similar in, you know, performance, but a simple remap, this car will immediately be faster than the Focus. The next thing I want to compare these hot hatches on, and which one is the best, is modifications. Because when you buy a car, when you buy a hot hatch, if it's your first car, second car, third car, or a project car, you want to modify it, you want to make it look different. As you can see, I've pretty much done everything you can to the Seat Leon. But what I want to do is talk about I want to talk about what you can do to each car, just to give you a rough idea. So if you bought a Seat Leon or a Focus, general Focus, and not even just an ST170, what you could do to the cars, like what splitters are available, what headlights, what anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly go around both cars and just do front, side, and just sort of explain what you can do, what modifications are available, and how expensive they are. So coming to the front of the Seat, you can have this model with either the pre-facelift, which has just a reference bumper, then a Stylance bumper, then an FR bumper, and a Cupra, and a K1. So there really are a variety of bumpers. But let's just say you've bought the Seat Leon FR, so it comes with this bumper. There's quite a few different splitters. There's the Maxton design, there's the TRC, and then you can get quite a few different custom ones. And then there's, I know Fiberworks do a splitter. So splitters are in abundance on this car. You can obviously paint like the grills black. There's different headlights you can go for. There's the standard, then there's the projectors like on the K1s and the Cupras, and then there's aftermarket headlights, and then you have the grills, and you have the honeycomb, and then you have the straight bars. So there really is a lot of customization on the front of a Seat Leon. Like you really can, and there's different bumpers. There's different bonnets you can go for. So there really is a lot of options for this car. And then you can even WRC it. There are WRC wide arch kits for this car. So yeah, there really is a lot of options for the front of this car. However, with the Focus, there isn't as much. There's only getting the Mark 1 or the 1.5 grille. There's a couple of different headlights. If you've got the ST bumper, there aren't many splitters that are available because it's just like a rubber sort of splitter thing at the bottom. That on there, which you can replace, but it's not easy because it's all screwed in, and then it's a bit of a faff. There are different bumpers because there's the SVT bumper, which is American, and there's a couple of different bumpers you can get, but there aren't many options for actually modifying the front of the Focus. You can, obviously, what I'm doing, get a WRC kit, which is completely changing the whole front of the car. But yeah, from sort of different like Maxton design companies and stuff like that, there aren't many options for this shape. I assume because it's a bit older, so maybe they didn't make that many at the time, and then because it's not a popular car, there isn't many options now. Coming to the sides of both cars, you both have the simple sort of sequential indicators, wind deflectors, getting different wings, and then the wheels. The Focus comes with 4x108s, and then the Seat comes with 5x112s, which after looking at wheels for the Focus, it is a lot easier to find wheels for the Seat being 5x112 than it is 4x18. Although 4x18, to be fair, is a very popular stud pattern in all sort of Fiestas, Focuses of an older generation, and even new ones still use like 4 stud. So yeah, there are options for them, but it is a lot easier to find nice wheels by a 5x112 pattern, stud pattern, that I've seen anyway. You can find wheels, I'm not saying you can't, but it's definitely easier to find wheels for the Seat. Then coming to the back of the car, you have the classic different spoilers you can get for the Seat, the wiper delete, the different bumpers, and then quite a variety of different exhausts. In the Seat, and this is a special Seat Leon, you have like the twin one side, or you have an oval one side, or you have the split, or you have the central exhaust. There really is a wide variety of exhausts you can get on the Seat Leon. However, with the Focus, due to
even the RS all coming out of the same left side, it's quite rare to have an exhaust that's different than just a standard left side exhaust. You don't really have many that are in the middle or the far right or twin exits. But what I will say, we're just going to continue with Maya in the background, is that the style of exhausts, depending on how much money you spend, either won't fit the hole properly or will just sit a bit weird. So like I've seen Sportex exhaust and Miltech exhausts which just don't sit like the Scorpion exhaust. It's so perfectly in the hole. I don't know, it's the only exhaust I would get. But what I won't argue is that some of them sound a bit sort of raspier or a bit louder because they have less resonators. So you can have different options for the Focus, but there isn't many. And then depending on what sort of sound you're going for means really there's only sort of one or two you can actually get. But also you can have a lip spoiler, or like as you can see, this one has a standard spoiler with it and then you have a lip spoiler on top of it. Wiper delete, you can go for like a different bumper. There's quite a lot of variety of different bumpers you can go for, and bumper sort of extensions here that you can sort of stick on. So there are quite a few different things you can do to the rear of the car, which is weirdly surprising, like in comparison to the front. You can change the tail lights on both cars for like some like LED ones or just US spec ones which don't have the big orange indicator bit there. That's a quick guide to basically all the modifications you can do to both cars, as there's quite a lot for both. I would say because the ST is a more popular car, more recent car, there's more options for it, but that doesn't stop you modifying a Mark 1 Focus. There's definitely still loads of modifications for that car, and I would recommend getting one and modifying it because it is quite cool and it's a bit quirky, it's a bit different at the moment. So next thing I want to talk about these two cars, what I want to compare them with, is practicality and reliability. So they're both very reliable engines, they're both very reliable platforms. So both the suspensions are very solid. The engine specifically, the 170, is very bulletproof. The only things that go wrong with these engines are the manifolds, the plastic manifolds in the 170 do tend to break. They're quite brittle, so after a certain amount of mileage they do snap and they do break. So a lot of people put the metal manifold, I think from the 170 A6 or the 140 on it. But yeah, so that's really the only thing with them. But mine's on 188,000, heavily tuned, and is absolutely fine. The engines are pretty bulletproof. The same with the Duratec engines, the 2-litre Duratec engines. They go on for absolutely miles. They're really solid engines. That's why you see a lot of people put forced induction, like you see a lot of people put on turbos and superchargers to them because they are overbuilt and they can take the extra power. So yeah, these engines also very solid. Really the only things that go wrong with these sort of cars are the classic just brakes, you know, general maintenance things. Obviously both have cam belts, so both need cam belts changing, but generally both cars are very reliable cars. So if you're thinking about getting a reliable car, both of them have very solid things. What I will say, obviously, if you're looking at buying a second-hand car, the 170 is going to be a harder one to find a good one because the likes of the turbo, the clutch, the cam belt, those sort of big expensive things will likely, if it's higher mileage or if it's sitting at around 120 or 130, might be going soon or might be gone. So you need to be looking out for blue smoke out the exhaust or just rattly bearings and just horrible noises that it might be making, rather than a good typical diesel noise. So coming to practicality, obviously this shape set Leon and the one before only ever came in a 5-door, so having 5 doors can always be slightly more practical than having a 3-door. However, the ST does also come in a 5-door, so if you did want a 5-door over a 3-door, you can. So technically there's no real difference between having a 5-door or a 3-door. The Seat Leon is slightly bigger, so if you want slightly more leg room, it's also slightly newer, so the suspension's built slightly better, the actual the sound deadening in the car is slightly better. The boot is slightly bigger, although the Focus boot is surprisingly big, so it is only slightly bigger. I'll put the litres of the size of the boot on the screen now to actually show you the comparison, but both have very good sized boots. The only difference, I will say, the Seat Leon, although it has a big boot, the entrance to the boot, because the actual boot lid is not that wide, so if you're ever trying to fit something big in there, although the boot could fit it, you actually can't put it through the entrance of the boot. It's a bit of a weird one, but yeah. The Seat Leon FR suspension is like a firm but not too hard ride, where the Focus is a renowned for having very good suspension, but I'd say it's more on the sporty plush side. So it handles bumps a bit better, it rolls a little bit more in the corners, but it still feels planted. Like, I'm not saying it literally rolls in the corners, because it is very planted, but in comparison to the Seat, which is like completely planted, doesn't roll at all. And if you do go for the FR Sport Suspension upgrade, which you can go for, it's even better, but then it's even more hard of a ride. So if you're looking for a practical daily driver, I'd say if you wanted a slightly comfier ride, the Focus is the car to go for. But if you want a slightly sportier ride and slightly quieter inside, the Seat is definitely the better call. A final summary on which is the best hot hatch. What I will say, they're both very fun to drive. They're both very enjoyable. This Focus feels like it's like a little car that you can chuck around the corners, and the Seat Leon is more of a handful. So it's a bit more aggressive. It's a bit more like on it. Even standard, I think this car it's been designed and built to be more sporty and aggressive, where the Focus is built to handle really well, and it does have built-in sort of lift-off oversteer in the suspension. That's why it's so high at the rear and low at the front, is it has built-in lift-off oversteer. So if you're going around the corner and you do lift-off oversteer, it will slide. So it is built for fun, and whoever built the Focus and built the suspension and the platform really did a good job. It just feels easier and more fun to play around in the Focus than it does the Seat, because the Seat feels like it's more aggressive and a bit more in attack mode. Yeah, so personally for me, deciding between them, I mean, it's hard because obviously the Seat Leon's my baby anyway, but if they were both standard, both sat there, obviously the Focus is worse on fuel, higher tax, higher insurance. It is easier to drive a Seat Leon daily. But for a project car and for just a laugh, I think the Focus, just for a laugh, and just because it is a bit retro, it's a bit different, I do prefer it. But yeah, leave what you think is the best hot hatch in the comments below. I mean, you could just put any hot hatch, but also between these two. I know, obviously, because the Seat's modified and it's green, it does look better and it is a bit more aggressive and it's obviously more tuned and it is a better car for like a daily situation. But that doesn't mean that the Focus isn't a really good car, and the Seat as obviously being a standard car, it would be a lot more even, I think, and a much more fair comparison. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.